back to Let's Talk Tuesday. This is the podcast where we have real conversations about learning, leadership, and what it truly takes to help people and organizations grow. Each week, we bring together different perspectives, experiences, and voices to explore what learning development really means, why it matters, and how we can do it better. Today, we have a very special guest, Rocky Pedden from Portland, Oregon, who has over 18 years of experience in go-to-market strategy, sales and marketing, and how AI applies to those worlds. Welcome, Rocky.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amanda. Great to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Let's talk. So tell us a little bit about your background and what your current focus is today.
Yeah, well, you kind of nailed it. Background heavily in sales and marketing over the last 10 years in particular. And for the last 7 years or so, I've been running a digital marketing agency that's focused historically in SEO content marketing. And then more recently, the last 2 years or so, we've been really transitioning into how AI is impacting marketing and how to influence those AI systems and tools to make sure that your brand is showing up and inside any of those queries that you might do inside ChatGPT or Perplexity or whichever of the LLM solutions that you currently use.
That's so interesting. And it's definitely, you're definitely top of mind for everyone today, right? Everyone's like, how does this apply to my world? How's AI impacting me specifically, my work, the people around me's work? So that makes sense. And what type of clients do you typically work with?
Yeah, typically with my company Revenues In, we're usually working with like B2B brands across the country, oftentimes in SaaS, tech companies in general, but we also blend into some service companies as well. But yeah, finance, tech, those are really the verticals that we typically stick inside of.
Very cool. And how big is your team today?
So Revenues In is part of a like portfolio of companies. We were acquired by Onfolio Holdings a couple years ago. And so the team specifically around Revenues In is working on like the SEO GEO side is pretty small. It's about 5 people, but
Mhm.
we're part of a larger team, about total of 30, 35 people between like the various brands that kind of work together across projects inside the portfolio.
Very cool.
Yes.
So with what I do, I specialize in learning development and large scale global rollouts for corporations. And even in my industry, the way insiders describe learning development is different for different groups. What does learning and development mean to you in your world?
Yeah, for me, I think I earmark more to the development side. Like that's just kind of how my brain works.
Mhm.
And when I think about like my team that I'm working with and managing, is how can I like help them not only achieve like their professional goals and like where they want to go, but it's like understanding what those are first and foremost. And for some people, that's they want to climb a ladder to these other roles that are more leadership focused. And for others, it's like, no, like my goal is to be really good at this thing and be an individual contributor and then take Fridays off and go hiking with my family. And like both of those answers are great. They're totally applicable to like a healthy work environment. So when I think of that development, it's really like, how can I help you achieve whatever your personal goals are in life relative to the work that you're doing here with Revenues In or wherever you end up going, if you don't stay at Revenues In forever. So,
I love
um,
that.
yeah, that's kind of
And
how I think about it typically.
in our world, we call it servant leadership. And it's basically how a leader's role, we see it as how can we be servants to and stewards of, right? To support them, to grow them, to make sure they're accomplishing their ambition and helping them maybe even stretch a little further than they thought possible. And but yeah, absolutely. I'm completely aligned with that. Why would you say learning development is so important, especially in today's world?
I think in the biggest reason I think is probably related to the options that people have. We live in a super connected world. Remote work is really common now, and so it's really uncommon, I would say, like to find leadership that is really focused on like actually developing you as a person and as an employee. And so, I think it's paramount that as leaders today, if you want to retain the best people, you have to show them a path that you're willing to engage with them to like help them achieve those goals that they have. Because if you're not going to do it, somebody else will. And so I think like that's why when I think about is this a core part of who we are and our philosophy and our founding values? Like that's really where it sits, is in taking care of our people. And one of our core values is like if you take care of your people and your customers, then growth and profits will follow and you'll be a successful business. And that comes directly. I worked for a period of time at Enterprise Rent a Car, like years and years and years ago. And like that was one of their values. And it just really resonated with me from the get go. And there was always at Enterprise like this internal dialogue of, well, who comes first, like the customer or the employee? And I always earmarked towards the employee.
Mm.
But there was like this ongoing kind of like it kind of split down the middle. Some people said no, customers have to come first, and other people said employees have to come first. In my view, like the employee always comes first, and that's just kind of how we've operated from the get go.
It's actually what you're saying is backed in science. So I have my master's in industrial organizational psychology, and it's been proven, like it's been tested time and time again. The companies that focus on their employees have better customer service, have better retention, have better growth in in market, gross profit, all that stuff. Because if the employee feels it, it pays it forward, right? So if you're investing in your people and they truly feel it, that it's not just checking the box, but they truly feel seen and valued, they are going to go the extra step to support your clients, your customers. And therefore, those people are going to feel the value and they're going to spread the word, right? And it's so clear and obvious, but yet so many companies don't quite hit the mark on that one. So, yeah, it's funny. I love when sentiment actually follows like the science behind it. So that's always fun when it's correlated.
Cool. I love that. I did not know that. So
Yeah,
I'm glad to learn that today.
you are on the cutting edge. Um, what what do you wish companies knew or did differently when it comes to learning and development?
I wish they like thought of learning development from like a strategic perspective. We have like from a marketing perspective and sales perspective, like you have strategy documentation. You have like, oh, we're going to do this level of research into keywords and prompts, and we're going to build an editorial calendar based off this. And you follow this kind of programmatic approach. The companies that I've worked at, like they didn't have that same thing for learning and development. It was more of like not necessarily a throwaway. Like some companies cared about it, but they didn't have like this built in, like, hey, quarterly, we're going to do this thing. Monthly, we're going to do this other thing. We're going to have these goals. We're going to work and talk through these. We're going to track progress. Like the way that you would treat a marketing campaign, it doesn't get the same love and attention from a learning and development perspective. Um, and I've used one of our I try to give a shout out to Rally Bright whenever I can. I don't know if you're familiar with Rally Bright or not, but it is a tool in the HR space that can really help facilitate these conversations. Not only broadly speaking from the organization in terms of the direction of the company and alignment with all of the people inside that org, but then also on an individual level, you can start looking at and like tying in like how they're doing their work and how they feel about that work to also then like their career development and into their own personal growth. So I wish that more companies looked at this as like a strategic pillar of how they operate. And like to your point that you just said, like the data, the science shows us that if you do these things, you will benefit from this. There's an ROI attached to it, but I don't think that's talked about enough inside of boardrooms and you're looking at a P&L statement.
It's so true. And one of the things I talk about a lot is because I'm talking to the C-suite, I'm talking to these huge organizations, a lot of times it's reminding them that L&D, learning development in our world, should have a seat at the table and it should be tied into the business's goals. So
Yes.
it's the similar to how you break down a goal. If you're an individual or if you're an organization, it's the same thing. We have this business objective, we have this thing that we're trying to solve for at the department level, at the company level. And then how does that break down? Like we like to reverse engineer it into the department's goals, into the team's goals, into the individual's goals, so that we can all be driving towards a business impact. Like you said, what's the ROI on it? What's the return on investment? But how do you tie in the business objectives with the individual's learning and development goals so that they're aligned and moving in the same direction instead of And that's going to lead to employee engagement, it's going to lead to retention, and it's going to lead to, it's not as sexy, but succession planning. A lot of people don't talk about it. And right now we have 5 different generations in the workforce for the first time ever. But we know a lot of these people are leaving, and there's a lot of new up and comers coming in that just can't bridge the gap of what's being lost. And so there's definitely strategic advantage of thinking this ahead of time to, bringing that alignment to the table of the business objectives, the business mission, all the way down to the individual people's learning paths, learning growth, and what you're pushing out. Because
Yeah.
again, training should be treated like a department like any other. They need to have, like, how are they benefiting the business? And so historically, it's been seen as this is a cost. This is first department that usually gets chopped when there is a problem or when there is, we've got to cut some numbers. And again, it is, if you look at it and it's tied properly to the return on investment of the company and the growth strategy, then that would not be the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the time that we live in right now, in particular with AI, this is, I think, even more important than before, just because of how quickly AI is being integrated into these systems and into these companies. And if you don't have again, a strategy around, well, how are we going to train our team on how to use these things and like what is the outcome going to be? Like you're going to fall behind because the companies that are doing that, and there are some thought leaders in various markets across industries who are really looking at AI and being like, this is a force multiplier with my team. I have a team of smart, capable, curious people, and that's like the perfect, like, pool, so to speak, to grow like exponentially with an AI system and development with the proper learning attached to it. So yeah, I think now more than ever, like the learning and development conversation is more important because the fact that we have access to this new technology that is just amplifying productivity, like how do you ingest that or inject that into your system, into your organization, like as efficiently as possible? It's a really valuable question to be asking ourselves right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And in today's world, especially with the new advances, even we can't even say AI is a blanket term because AI even 2 months ago is different than AI today. We were
Oh yeah.
talking briefly about before we started recording. So it's the we've always said the pace of change, right? It's getting faster and faster. And so being able to keep up with it becomes kind of a daily task almost to make sure that you're staying in the know and continuing to push forward. We've covered a lot of ground, so I'm going to start to wrap up here. What is one actionable tip or takeaway that you want the audience listening to be able to apply today, right now? What could they do?
I think staying in that like AI thread, I think finding a way to train your team on how to use AI, like pick an AI system, find one that you like that resonates. There's a bunch of good ones, whether that's Claude, that's my preferred system is like the co-working environment. But Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever, like pick one and like empower people on your team to take the lead and like tell you what you're missing and what you're not doing in your business. Like I know most business owners who I interface with, they talk about their hiring strategy is to hire smart people. Like let them be smart and curious and let them tell you what you're not doing yet, and give them some equity, so to speak, in like how this gets rolled out across the org. Because I think there's a lot of anxiety right now around AI and how it's being deployed and what it means for future jobs and roles and so on and so forth. And so I think from a leadership perspective, we have this obligation to like help like carve that path out with our employees and help them understand like this is how you use these tools and this is how you fit into the future of what this organization looks like. So I think that's the biggest thing for me right now that I'm really focused on is like how do I make sure my team doesn't feel like they're going to be left behind and that they're like a part of our future success, just like they've been part of our past success.
And I love that. I love so many parts of what you just said. But in addition to having the autonomy for them to take it and run with it, I love your idea about, you're hiring smart people, like let them be smart and make sure that they tell you. Because again, I always want to be around people who are better than me or growing because then you up your skills. And the collective is greater than the parts, right? So the more you can, create those people who are doing those kind of side, like, how can we leverage it this way? And this person's focused on that and that person. So that way we can all come together and be the stronger collective instead of just everybody like, okay, everybody take this one training and now we're all, and again, I'm somebody also who's all about you have to speak the same language with your team, you have to mean the same things. So it is important to get that baseline foundation, but to have those special captains or whatever you want to call them, um, you know, special groups or specialists to go in and deep dive in a way that, not everyone can do, but that everyone can benefit from.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we call them change makers oftentimes
Love it.
internally, and like we want those people to like, yeah, like just go experiment, go play in the sandbox and figure out. Like, even if you don't have any coding experience, like just try Claude Code or try, the AI Studio from Gemini. Just like try to build something, see what happens. Because like we are so ingrained in our own pathways and how we do our work. It's like having another set of eyes come from like a totally different perspective can be so beneficial. But yeah, I agree.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. I will definitely put in the show notes how to get in touch with Rocky. And thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
And with that, we'll begin to wrap up. So I hope this discussion gave our audience a few new perspectives, sparked some ideas, and left you with at least one takeaway you can put into action immediately. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and join us every Tuesday as we continue exploring learning, leadership, and what it takes to help people and organizations grow. And if today's conversation resonated with you, or if you'd like to join me for a future episode, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and let's talk again on Tuesday. Thanks, everyone.